Okay. Grateful to have everyone with us this morning for this final Bible class session on Sunday morning here at Laurel, dealing with the idea of what church members need to know concerning cancer. I'm sure Don, even though I don't know exactly what he's doing today, is pretty much going to do what I'm going to do, and that's sort of somewhat of a wrap up from what we did yesterday and also on Friday evening. In Romans 12, verse 15, Paul says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep." Obviously, we often say, in any kind of responsibility or any kind of relationship that we have in the church family, when there's a reason to celebrate, we celebrate. And when there's a reason for sorrow, then we sorrow. We'll say this morning in our worship service, because we're part of a family, we're interconnected, which means that your pain's my pain, and your celebrations are my celebrations. When it comes to cancer, obviously cancer is a very personal thing. We talked about it yesterday. It affects not just obviously the survivor, but it affects everyone connected to them, including the church family. Now, what are some challenges that we face in trying to connect the church family to where we are with our cancer? What are some, in fact, there may be some that may be even considered obstacles. What are some things that are difficult when it comes to dealing with cancer, and you're wanting to let, or a church member wanting to find out where you are with all that? And the same would be true for dementia. The same would be true for chronic illness. Anything.
Some things are personal.
Yeah, it's very personal in nature. Yeah.
And like a vehicle for communication, because I think that like stuff gets misunderstood.
Exactly.
I don't think people, like purposefully miscommunicate things, but if something's misunderstood by one person and then misunderstood by another person, and then someone could be on their like death's door, and really they just didn't have a good day. There's
Exactly.
There's the vehicle for communication, I think, is challenging, as well as like a vehicle for communicating like what do I need.
Right.
And it's really hard to like ask for help in general. I mean, I think that the church, well, no offense to any men, I think the women at the church try to do a good job of saying like, hey, does your family need meals? That's something, we can help with. But sometimes I think that like, it probably would have been helpful even earlier. And like, we just don't know or aren't aware or don't think about the challenges or, like how that looks unless you're in that situation and you're like, desperate or whatever. And even then, it's usually more of like a close friends or family members saying like, hey, I think this would be really good if we would do this.
Exactly.
Not the person themselves saying.
Right. Yeah. Well, just like in we talked yesterday in regard to a family, you need a navigator, you need an advocate, you need someone that's a go-between you, the patient, and the doctors, the staff, all the protocol you're going to be dealing with.
And you get tired of repeating your situation sometimes too, because a lot of people ask, it'd be nice if there's one way to let that be known, and then you don't have to keep saying
The
it.
same way like managing that, like when this was a while ago though, like we did meals for your daughter's family, and at the time I like headed up. That doesn't mean I cooked everything. Like I don't even know if I cooked. People would volunteer and sign up and whatever, but like I would talk to Jenny and say like, hey, like how many people, what do we need, what are the allergies, whatever. and then like she became like the manager of that.
Right.
And then like when I was having, you know, a lot of challenges, like my mom and Miss Sandy were like the of whatever, and it was like, you know, I would just sometimes come out of bed and order food, and Miss Sandy or mom or whoever would say like, oh well, this came from Kathy or Sue or whoever, and I would be like, oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
but it's like you need like somebody like in the church. I mean, like we have department managers, isn't the right word, but we have like department managers of like I think now it's supposed to be my mom and I that share the like if somebody needs meals, then we like yeah, whatever. Well, there's like multiple food committees for different food things, but you know, like we put it out and get volunteers and whatever.
Right.
But then the other side, like they need their own manager,
Right.
or we need to figure out how to. Yeah, we need to figure out how to like even alleviate that. So
Yeah.
it's just like here you go.
Okay, and here's one of the issues that you deal with. I'm sure you likely have multiple people on your prayer list that, you know, and if they're kin to the folks down in Alabama, they want to stay on that prayer list forever and a day. And seriously, we had some that lady told me, she said, I will come haunt you if you take me off the prayer list. And that lady was a scary lady. And so we kept her on the prayer list. But the point of the matter is, who do you pick to take care of this week? And if they're already past their, you know, if they're in remission, or if they had a successful surgery with cancer, or it seems to be that things are going well with the dementia at that point in time, there's sort of a lull in regard to the activity. You know, do you say, okay, out of sight, out of mind? Or do you come back and say, you know, we haven't done anything for them in a while, we probably need to do something?
Yeah, because chances are, like, you're not going to say, like, oh, yeah, I really need this again. Like,
Right.
could you bring me food, please? Like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to say that. Like,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Because even when we started bringing food to, like, stores and stuff, Mom had to, like, talk Kelly into it. Like, please let us do this, because we can do this. Like,
Right.
you know, and I get that, too. Like,
And then we found out how helpful that was.
Yeah.
and that also, and that also gave some of us an opportunity to visit with her that hadn't seen. this
Right.
over. You know, like,
That-
It takes away the joy of somebody who wants to do it.
right.
Yeah.
Don't let it.
But you feel like a burden at the same time.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the past year and a half, though, with COVID, just multiplied the difficulty of
Exactly.
keeping people informed of stuff. I know when I was Columbus, Ohio, and Ohio State University Hospital, you almost had to sell them your blood to get in. I mean, you know, you had to, they let one person a day in, and if that person left, nobody else could go,
Yeah.
you know. And then when he got into a rehab center, they weren't letting any visitors in. And then when he got home, physical therapy and speech therapy and occupational therapy were each coming twice a week. And he was so weak and all that that was all they could handle. You really
Right.
couldn't allow people to come and visit, and
Right.
you know, it just
Well,
it just made things way more difficult.
Yeah.
As far as people understanding.
well, you somewhat had our hands tied in regard to, I mean, I don't know what the protocol or what people's thoughts of, but, you know, obviously we just had a few weeks ago our first open, I hate to call it open fellowship, but people could bring what they wanted to bring. Some obviously bought stuff, you know, prepared from somebody else, which you would hope to use safety, and then others brought their own things. But that was the first time that we've done that in 16 months, 15 months. And because, you know, there was that, you know, idea of safety and cleanliness and all this kind of, so the church's hands were tied in the sense of doing stuff. You know, we started going to giving gift cards that would let them take out, you know, if that was a possible, or we even brought it to them. we're doing a takeout from this place. We're just going to bring it to you for your meal. But the point of the matter is, you want to continue to be a contact to them. You want to continue to let them, to remind them, hey, you're part of us, even though you've not been able to be with us. But it's a challenge. And also, let's face it, every person that you're dealing with, or every family member you're dealing with, they're different. Some will, what's the word I want to use? Some will enjoy and expect a lot of attention. And others are tremendously private, and you almost have to get an act of Congress to get them to even agree to do one thing, or a meal for them, whatever. And so you got them from A to Z situation. And so, but the point of the matter is, somewhere down the line, you want to continue to demonstrate, hey, we're a family. And we want to, but it's a challenge, and so remember that, and it's something that has to be improved on, and continually, and communication is the key. It really is.
I think it's hard too for people, like, if you are not well in whatever dementia, cancer, illness, whatever. If you're not well and you really don't want to get out of bed or see anybody, then for me, I felt like, well, people are coming. I mean, sure, because of COVID, some people left stuff at our garage door, which was, I learned that, which was fine, or brought whatever, but it felt like to me sometimes like even worse, because I was like, I don't really want to see anyone.
Exactly.
And yet, I really would like if they would still bring food, because people here want to eat, but I don't. Miss Sue came and brought food one day and wanted to come in, which she did, and I'm in bed, and I was just like, well, it's Miss Sue, so it's fine. She's in bed.
I did when Sue started. Sandy said, let me go ask her.
Yeah, no, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But and there's people that you might be more comfortable with that, that it's okay if she comes in while, even though I'm in bed in my pajamas and, whatever. And other people where you're like, that's really, I'm not comfortable with that, but I still appreciate what you're doing.
Right.
I think there's all those, unfortunately, there's so many things going through your, anyone's brain about, people helping them.
Right.
And that's, I don't know how the church can help alleviate that either.
Right. Well, it's an issue that will, regardless of what you do, for some folks it won't be enough, and for other folks it'll be way too much. And so you have to, so you're all nodding your heads, so you're kin to the folks in Alabama. I figured that, because that's where we are. We have some folks that are, they really, expect a whole lot, and then the others, nah. And they're also that way in regard to, well, just leave it at the door. In fact, they don't even want to see you. Or when we were, sometime delivering Lord's Supper supplies, last year, we would just knock on the door and say, here it is, and whatever, because they didn't have the ability to even drive to the building to get it. But again, that's something that we have to think about, and And I think what Paul was trying to say here is, okay, when there are occasions that you rejoice, then let's be sure we rejoice. Now the other part is just also important. And remember, it's not an or, it's an and there. And weep with those who weep. And we've talked about, the past couple of days, when you don't get a good scan. When the doctor says this is not working, let's go look at alternative forms of treatment, or can we put you in a test study somewhere, research study somewhere? That may be indicative of where things may be going. There was a study done January 8th on my wife's birthday, 2020. That's also Elvis's birthday, just in case you folks wondered. But on January 8th last year, they had an article entitled Cancer Death Rate in USC's Sharpest One-Year Drop. I'm going to pass it around should you like to look at it as a New York Times article. And some of the notes there at the very top of on this first page relate to that. In 2018, there was 1.7 million. I think now that's 1.9 million. 2019, 20, and 21, it's up to 1.9 million. But the cancer rates fell 2.2 from 2016-17, which is the largest one-year decline in cancer mortality ever reported. And as the article suggests, the reason that is the case is because we're having better treatments, better scans, better technology, I think more educated oncologists and all the other fields of study in regard related to cancer that are doing a better job. Obviously immunotherapy in regard to T cells. There's just a lot of different reasons. Cancer-related deaths decreased 29% from 1991 to 2019, which means 2.9 million fewer cancer deaths. And again, this is quoting that article that I'm just passing around. Just for your information, these are the most common cancers in the United States. Of course, mortality, cancer is the number 2 mortality rate of cause of death in America, heart being the first. Still, although it's getting closer and closer in that regard. The next page is some of the things that we talked about in the past day and a half in regard to the diagnosis. But the point that I guess I was trying to make, and sometimes we'll have people that have not gone to come to any of the classes, and therefore this is sort of just a capsule, a summary of some of the challenges that they face. But I want to go to the third page, which says congregations need to be there for those moments. If someone wants the church to know, okay, they're scanning this, they're doing a biopsy, I get the news report 2 weeks or a week from now. Well, what time, do you want us to know about it? Do you want us to know what the diagnosis is? Is there a way that we can communicate that information? We mentioned yesterday caringbridge.org, and there are other websites like that as well. That is a great way. And of course, you have email programs and that you can do the same thing. But again, you're dealing with folks from A to Z in regard to, some folks are very, very private. Other folks just say, tell everything you want to tell.
She said earlier, you have to repeat to each individual person, and with Caring Bridge, you can post it and everybody comes and sees it.
Yeah. And also, what I loved about it, and we used it in regard to the cancer program that I teach. The individual that was the facilitator of it, he happened to be the mate of the wife that was dealing with the cancer. He tremendously told us every single day what he was feeling and what she was feeling. And that really helped the rest of us to be able to relate and to respond back to him based upon that. I mean, yeah, exactly. And of course, realizing that once you put it out there, guess what? It's out there. And so you've got to be careful, because again, some folks are really, really private. And other folks, say the wrong things. We'll talk about that in just in a moment. But the thing is, you've got to remember that there's a need for when they're getting diagnosed. What about treatment? Church members. We talked about, Thea mentioned yesterday in a good way, all the different avenues that fall into place when it deals with cancer. You may need someone to be the front runner. You may need someone to be the research person. You may need someone to be the person that takes you to the treatments. You may need the person that's the scheduler. You may need, and again, it would be, you're saying, well, that's all one person. Well, bless their heart. I hope they have, I hope they can sleep sometimes. because you need different people from time. And you know, we have some of our church ladies, they're scheduled to take so-and-so to the doctor, and that's their job. They don't do anything else, but they're because of their time frame, they're able to say, tell me when your appointments are, I'll put them on my calendar, and you can just continue to consider that done. Well, that takes a lot of burden off of that person.
And it's easier to share. We have a friend that's not a member of the church, but has been on the prayer list, and there's 5 women that help to take her to her treatments. And that way there's backup plans if something falls through, and it doesn't put too much, like if one of them has to pick up grandchildren and they can't go to that appointment, then one of us will step in. So it's nice to have a little team of people helping.
Are you familiar with our Women to Women like ministry here?
No.
Has anybody ever talked to you about that?
No.
Yeah, so Kathy Hudson, it was her sort of baby, I guess, that a few years ago, it was based on a book that I wasn't
Evangelistic women.
Yeah, the
Book
evangelistic
that we
women.
study.
But we have a whole like women's ministry that has probably like 20,
More than that.
ministries in it, and they range from someone who's responsible for cleaning the kitchen, you know, to a team of people that can be called on to like do what you were just saying, taking somebody to the doctor, scheduling that, but they're basically all ministry teams, and the women are, kind of volunteer for, which one would be on, and Ron was saying we have like meals for people kind of divided up geographically, so there's like 3 different geographic regions.
Or we have like different people, like a different person is in charge of if there's a funeral and we need a meal
Right,
arranged
that's
for
what we do
that,
too.
and different, yeah.
Then we have one for sick.
Yeah.
We have that's
So
the
we-
great program.
Yeah, so we have that, and that, I think that works. And sometimes, I know that there are women in the congregation that have in the past had almost like a one-on-one relationship with somebody, so that they, there's one person here who's a nurse also, that like every week she would go to this person's house on a certain day, and, and do, and I think she did a variety of things, because the longest time I wasn't even aware that she was doing that. But anyway, but those kind of things happen too. So
And we actually have a notebook like that with who's the head of each thing.
Yeah.
Showers, we have 2
Yeah, we have a
30-year-old
notebook too.
people that do that.
Yeah.
That way you can contact them if you want to help with that.
Right.
They can phone numbers, everything.
And the
And
elders
that's a
know
great
who to
program.
contact if a committee.
And you know it's working well when things are done when no one even knows about it, because they just want to do it. That's when you know that you got a good program working in that regard. Let's look at some things about things to say, because that, we've talked about communication and how important communication is. Some things we ought to avoid. How are you? And guess what? We ask that all the time, don't we?
My brother just said that to me 2 weeks ago when I was out there. He said, why do people call me and say, how are you?
Yeah. Well, now you can tell them, hey, today, what are you feeling? Or again, as I say, when you get to the hospital, it is good to see you today. And then leave it alone. If they want to, if they say it's not good to see you, then we may have a problem. But still, at least instead of just asking, because again, they're wondering, what are they asking about, and how much do I want to share with them? You want to avoid, well, you look great, as if you haven't looked great before, or what's changed now? Because sometimes a cancer patient or a dementia patient or a caregiver who's been up 24/7 almost, or in fact everything's been reversed and they're sundowners, and they've been up from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't feel great. They don't feel great. Um,
I'm guilty of that because I call my daughter on the phone and I say, "So how are you today?" And then when I do get to see her, for a long time she looked really bad. She had dark circles and
right.
her skin coloring was not good. But then I go see her and a lot of times she looks really good.
Right.
And, you know, she had lost all her hair and all. Now her hair's come back in quite a bit. And I always tell her, you look good, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's
But
different.
even
It's different coming
Yeah,
from your
it,
mother.
it is. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is the.
Because I was in the grocery store with my mom one day and we saw somebody and I was like not having a good day. It was when I used my like device and had it with me and like was just trying to get through the grocery visit and we saw somebody that we knew and mom like told her I was having some health stuff or whatever and she's like, well, I don't know, but you've been losing weight and you just look great and I'm like, yeah, well not purposely. Like in my mind, I've been trying to lose more weight, like, but it's different if it comes from your mom because
Well,
she'd probably also say, yeah, you look like you're not having a good day.
Yeah, I do.
well, I think you've earned the right.
Yeah.
You know,
I think saying how are you today is better than just saying how are you. Because
Right.
that's acknowledging. You realize every day is different. You have good days and bad days. And even adding that one word makes it a little better, you know, rather than just say, well, how are you?
yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah. And again, you just need to think about the question that you're about to ask and the situation that you're coming into. That's the whole point. You know, it may fit. Well, you do look better than you did the other day when you were just out of surgery. And that's that, you know, but again, if they're on pain meds, they could care less anyway. You know, so you know, but the thing is, you gotta remember what's appropriate for the situation. And like you said, sometimes all you're doing is getting by, and all you want to do is you want to get out of there. If you're at a grocery store or if you're at the doctor's office, you don't want to have a 15-minute conversation, you know, with somebody, even from the church, you know, and you know, if they, can I come by? Yes, next year sometime would be great. You know, I mean, you know, but the point of the matter is, you just need to put yourself in their shoes. That's the thing to do. Put yourself in their shoes instead of coming from your own perspective. Words that you can say and be helpful. I am sorry this happened to you. Period. You know, just and then if they want to say, well, thank you, or yes, you know, and then they go into, that's up to them. But you're just saying, I am really sorry that this happened. Tell me how I can help better. I'm going to bring dinner down, or here's a gift card. You know, in other words, and again, as I mentioned, I had a lady that was dealing with a divorce situation, terrible situation. She said the thing that hurt me the most is when someone promised to come and visit with my kids and they didn't come, or to take my kids to the park and they never showed up. She said, that's the thing that hurt me the worst. And she said, I know they meant well, but said, don't you dare say that, particularly in front of my kids, and then my kids have to hear that. And so you know, in fact, you know, sometimes, you know, what is it? It's better not to say anything at all than to say the wrong thing. I think sometimes when it comes to dealing with cancer or dementia or other situations, it's better just to be as simple as you can possibly be. I'm sorry. I love you. What can I do to help? Yes, I am praying for you daily or hourly, you know, whatever, you know, but again, you're asking. I'm here to talk, and that's fine. But it's probably better to even say, I'm here to listen if you want to talk. and then you're giving them permission to say whatever it is, particularly if you're visiting with them, okay? And you're face to face with them. Tell me what to do and I'll gladly do it for you. But be sure that you do that. Because if you don't, what are they going to think?
You don't really care.
You don't really care. Exactly. And they won't ask you again. And they'll actually mark you off the list, mentally or otherwise. And that's not part of being a good family member. I think Theo mentioned, this idea of I know how you feel. No, you don't. In fact, the better thing is I cannot even imagine understanding what you're going through. And to me, that's not a cop-out. That is saying, truthfully, I cannot fathom in my mind, in my reason, in my life, what you're facing. And when you say something like that, what are you opening the door to if they want to go through it? Explaining what they're going through. If they want to talk about it. Just be sure that you've got enough time to listen. There was a well-known preacher, and probably he was more deep South Alabama or deep Bible Belt. VP Black, anybody ever heard of VP Black? Okay, well-known preacher down in Alabama and whatever. Well, he was a evangelist for 60 plus years, and I had the opportunity to work with him both as a minister as well as an elder when I was a youth minister years ago. We would go to the hospital to visit, particularly those first few months that I was there, because there was no other actual located pulpit guy there. Brother Black was sort of, I preached some and then Brother Black would preach some when he was not holding gospel meetings. But anyway, he took me to the hospitals. We had 3 hospitals there in Mobile. And we visited, and I think we probably visited 10, 12, 13 different people, and we were finished in about an hour and 45 minutes. And what I learned from him is, number one, you're going into a hospital where folks are sick, and you don't need to talk real long with them. And of course now it's like you say, it's much more difficult. It is for us, and I'm sure they're probably the same here. But it's much more. Hospital visitation is going to take on a whole different perspective, unless things loosen up. And I don't see them loosening up anytime soon with that Delta variant we've got down there in Alabama going on. But he would go in. He'd speak to the person. He'd talk about what's going on with them. If they wanted to share it, we had prayer and we left. And I told Bonnie when I got home, I said, well, boy, I learned something about hospital visitation today. Because I sort of had this idea, okay, I'm going in to see them. They ought to be glad to see me, and we'll have a good 15, 20-minute conversation. Not with him, we didn't. And yet every single one of those people perked up every time they came in because he meant something to them. He had been there for them. He had been their pulpit minister before he had become the evangelistic minister. And so therefore they all knew him. They all loved him. So remember that. We don't have to make it an hour visit to be effective. And because again, you're going into a situation where they're dealing with sickness of some kind or the other. Someone that has just had chemotherapy, guess what? They don't need you to come and stay. Because you may be very quickly, depending on where they are with their chemotherapy, they may be quickly needing to excuse themselves and go somewhere to relieve themselves of one kind or the other. On the back page, this is just
On number 2, on what we just went over,
Sure.
I think it's phrased really well there. I'm going to bring you dinner instead of can I bring you dinner?
Exactly.
Because when you say can I bring you dinner, you're given an option of an out.
Right.
And my father-in-law would take that out every time.
Exactly.
But if someone said,
It's already done.
I'm bringing you dinner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm on the way, or I'm going to pick it up right now. Yeah.
Sean's wife, I don't even know, well, you probably know this, but Sean's wife, Kelly, actually sent me a gift card virtually for HelloFresh. And then, like, I got the email and was like, I don't even know what this is. And, like, 2 days later, texted me and was like, I sent you this. You should have it in your email. Just so you know, I didn't know how to help, so I thought that would be helpful. And I was like, there was no turning it down. It was already
It's a done deal.
And then another time, I suddenly had freezer meals show up at my house via Kelly, and I was like, okay. I mean, and that was actually awesome because then it was like, if I didn't need it right then, I could just go back in the freezer, and you know, and I think that's sort of like, well, here it is, so it's already at your house now, so you gotta have it.
Yeah. Well,
That was like, for me, both times I was really taken off guard too, like, okay, well, thanks. And the like Hello Fresh thing, which I didn't have any experience with, was really great when I was starting to sort of come to a point where I was able to do some things.
Right.
Because then it was like, well, then I can cook this, and everything is here, and it's not really hard, and I can figure it out, and you know, this isn't. I don't have
It's a
to.
nice new experience.
Right, and I don't have to go to the grocery store, and then you know, like it's here. I can figure out how to do this, and but I could also wait until I was ready for that.
right.
So yeah, I just think that kind of. I mean, and I obviously, it had never occurred to me, which is so silly, to like take someone a freezer meal to put in their freezer. Like, even though I have freezer meals in my well, not now, but that's something I do. But that was never something that's occurred to me, like, because I've always been like, why would somebody want a freezer meal? Like, until I was given it, and I was like, this is great.
Most people don't think of these things, and I think also our society is much more isolated the last 20 years. And now, when you do have something happen, you realize those things.
Yeah.
We had a friend who moved, and one of his friends that was not a member of the church came to help him, and he said, I can't believe you just moved your entire house within 2 hours with all these guys and all these trucks. Where did all these people come from? And he said, they're all from my church.
Yeah.
And he went, I'll be there soon.
I mean,
This is like
people are
amazing.
often very amazed at, you know, when I say different things about like, oh, well, our church is helping with this, or, you know, different things, because they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, like, isn't that what everyone's church does? Like,
that's
that's
what the church is supposed to be. And I think a lot of people are not aware of what a church's activity is supposed to be.
yeah.
That's sort of strange.
A lot of churches, people don't know each other.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right. They
They
don't realize
come,
it.
you know, they don't even say hello to each other. If they met them out on the street, they probably wouldn't know who they were.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sitting right beside them, and because that's not part of the religions.
Yeah. And you know, it made the church in the first century work together. You know, that what you read there in Acts chapter 2, you know, the beginning of the church, you know, chapter 3, chapter 4, they're giving money to help take care of people benevolently. You know, chapter 6, you got a problem with the Grecian widows. The apostles jumped on that and said, okay, we're busy doing what we're doing, but this is a problem that needs to be taken care of now. And it got taken care of because it was so important that everyone in the church felt loved, appreciated, confirmed as being important. And I think that's, you know, and what you're saying, you know, instead of, and again, there's some people you may have to ask permission, but there are other folks who are saying they're going to turn you down if you ask them, but you know they need it. So it's our plan, it's coming your way. Enjoy.
You know, I think Kelly, my wife, was hesitant to have people bring meals because we were bringing meals, and when we brought meals to Ronnie and Doris, which is our mother-in-law, father-in-law,
Right.
at some point he would feel that he needed to cook us dinner. Yeah, yeah.
Well, my brother's dog had arranged for them to get Meals on Wheels or whatever they call it in West Virginia. And my she has trouble, figuring out what to fix and has to puree everything. And they said the food was really good, and it would come about 9:30 in the morning. It would be delivered, and it would be enough for lunch and even some left over for dinner. But just this week, they were notified that we can no longer deliver meals because we can't find delivery people. And that's because of all the shortage of people willing to work and stuff. So that's somewhere where the church can step in and have some. They said you can pick it up on Green Street, but my brother can't drive and his wife, So
Yeah.
other than imposing more on Jennifer, they can, if they let the church know, that's where people could go get those meals for them, because it's such a big help to them.
Right. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming, for those who were with us all weekend long, and for you today. It's important for us to be folks that are actively involved in the work of the church, and this is a great way to do that. So thanks so much. We'll look forward to worship here in just a few minutes.